Welcome back to Uepi. We're Katie and Jace and we live off-grid on a remote island in the Solomon Islands with our 3 kids. We run a small dive resort, raise our family close to nature and try to take care of the reef and land around us as best we can. In this episode, we're back underwater, gathering coral fragments and planting them on what's now named Hypothesis Rock, part of a small experiment led by Arlo. We're going to cover what is actually happening when sea temperatures rise and how we're staying optimistic. We'll also take you behind the scenes as we tackle a whole range of island jobs, making the most of some quiet time to clear space, build, repair, and prepare for what's next. Just when we thought the week was over, there's also some new arrivals and the lagoon surprises us with some truly unforgettable creatures. Thanks so much for being here, guys. Let's get into it.
Don't mind the chainsaw in the background. There's a lot going on the island. We actually have no guests here at the moment. So we're trying to get a lot of yard jobs done, just cleaning up piles of palm fronds and other sticks and stuff that need to get burnt up. But we are going for a dive because the current's coming in. Am I right? Is the current coming in?
Current's coming in.
Current's coming in and it's been way too long since we've been for a dive. Molly's coming too.
We're not doing corals today.
No corals today. We need to do that tomorrow morning. When the kids are at school, we're planting corals. But for today, it's just fun.
You'd think that we'd be underwater all the time, that living here with the reef just a few steps away would mean endless days of diving. But lately we have not been able to scuba dive nearly as often as we would like. There is always something to do, fixing something, building something, running after kids, keeping the wheels turning on island time. But when we do make it down here, beneath the surface in this quiet world, it all makes sense again. The reef has a way of reminding us why we choose to live this lifestyle. It's not just about the beauty, it's the feeling of being part of something so much bigger than ourselves. This footage isn't anything special, it's kind of bad light and murky colour, but this moment was unreal. Jace had spotted these 2 moray eels tangled up together, and just as we were watching, one of them suddenly lunged at the other. A puff of sand shoots out like fireworks, and it felt like a grand finale to this strange little underwater drama.
Hey guys, so we've been wanting to talk to you about our coral reef for quite some time. For those of you who are new here, you might not realise that I've actually lived here almost my entire life. So over the years, I have seen this reef go through many different changes and face many different challenges, as have my mum and dad. And even though we are not at the moment diving as much as we would like to, we are constantly aware and connected to the health and the state of our reef.
It's something that we think about pretty much on a daily basis. We talk to our kids about really often, and even if we're just taking a quick swim off the dive jetty with the kids, we're observing the health of the coral. What we want to get across to you guys is that when we see changes in the reef or we come up against potential threats to the coral reef, it affects us quite deeply. I know for myself, at the beginning of this year, we went through a period where we were quite concerned about the state of the planet and the climate. And I lost a lot of sleep over it, actually, to be completely frank. I was pretty worried that we were going to face some really hot water, and the predictions looked that way, so we got quite concerned about it. But when we talk about the change in sea temperatures or rising sea temperatures, sea surface temperatures, what does that actually mean, and what's the consequence to the coral? Most people understand that coral bleaching's bad, and if you see a big patch of white coral, that would be really bad. But I don't know that too many people understand exactly what is happening and what's going on. And I guess what we wanted to be able to do in this video is share the information in such a way that we can help others to understand and give an optimistic outlook on how we can potentially view those situations when the sea surface temperatures rise and what the likely outcomes are.
Yeah.
Coral reefs are often called the rainforests of the sea, brimming with life, colour and connection. But beneath this beauty is a delicate partnership that keeps the reef alive. Inside each coral polyp live tiny algae called zooxanthellae. These microscopic partners use sunlight to produce food for the coral, kind of like a solar-powered chef. In return, they get a safe place to live. But when ocean temperatures rise, even by just 1 or 2 degrees, this fragile relationship starts to break down. The heat stresses the coral, and its internal environment becomes hostile. In a desperate move, it casts out the algae, like a homeowner forced to evict its chef in the middle of a crisis. Without the algae, corals lose their colour and begin to fluoresce, glowing in vivid hues as a last-ditch sunscreen effect. But if the heat continues, this glow fades, and the coral turns ghostly white. This is coral bleaching. A bleached coral isn't dead, yet, but without its algae, it's starving. Some corals recover if waters cool quickly, regaining their algae. Others, unfortunately, don't survive. Some species can tough it out, thanks to protective factors like heat-hardy algae, shade from clouds, deeper water, or even genetic resilience. But even the strongest corals have their limits. And here's the hard truth. Global ocean temperatures have been rising steadily, year after year. Marine heat waves are becoming longer, hotter, and more frequent. Back in March this year, global reports showed record-breaking sea surface temperatures across the Pacific. NOAA's Coral Reef Watch issued off-the-chart bleaching alerts, and they confirmed the 4th global coral bleaching event, continuing from January 2023 through to the start of 2025. Here on our reef, we saw it too. The water was unusually warm, and we began noticing signs of coral stress. Early colour shifts, paler patches, and an uneasy sense that something was off. But then something remarkable happened. A late season cyclone swept through, bringing rain, wind, and cooler cloud-covered days. It was perfectly timed, giving the reef a vital break from the heat. Our reef has a few things working in its favour. Because it's protected, it escapes many of the daily stresses that other reefs face. Cool water flows across it from the Deepwater Channel, fed by the 3,000-metre trench of New Georgia Sound. These natural buffers might just be helping our corals to hang on. Some coral species are naturally tougher, but even resilience has its limits. Coral reefs support 1/4 of all marine life. If we lose them to mass bleaching, entire ocean ecosystems could collapse. And without healthy oceans, Earth itself cannot stay in balance. The future of the reef is the future of the planet. So understanding what's happening helps us to act, whether it's protecting reefs, reducing emissions, or simply sharing the story of the coral. Because when we give these corals a fighting chance, they can surprise us with their strength.
So how does this all tie into what we're doing with our coral gardening and coral planting? Basically, we are trying to establish small colonies of coral that are more heat resilient on our already healthy reef. So it's quite different from traditional methods of coral restoration, I guess, where people go into a reef which is devastated and they try and replant corals on a essentially dead reef. What we're trying to do is build resilience in an already healthy reef to better prepare it for any potential threats in the future.
And I guess what we've observed already so far is that we have had heat exposure to our corals, and some of the corals displayed amazing resilience. So they're the ones that we're trying to propagate. We've seen quite a lot of stuff on social media, on Instagram, but also in news outlets talking about the bleaching events that have occurred this year.
Yeah, without a lot of context.
Without a lot of context, and although it is a very dire situation, this is a global bleaching event, it has affected most coral reefs around the world. I think that there is also that story of optimism. Some coral reefs can display signs of resilience and potentially recover from these bleaching events, and I think that's what's not well displayed, is what's actually happening, helping you guys see what's actually happening to the coral when it's exposed to that heat stress. I'd really love to hear from you guys in the comments about what you know and understand about coral stress and coral reefs, and even on this topic of coral bleaching and what's happening when we see corals lose their zooxanthellae. Okay, so Jason and I are going to get in the water here at Kiverley, which is out the front of our old house, Molly's deck out here. So we're planning to harvest some corals that appear to have survived really well in warm conditions. So this was actually Arlo pointed out, and we are wanting to test Arlo's hypothesis.
Move them over to the other side, and they got used to cooler waters, and then it got hot again. Would they still survive?
And that is an incredible hypothesis to test.
If a coral is surviving well in warmer water, because the lagoon here is shallow, it's subject to warmer water all the time. If a coral thrives in those conditions, if we take a transplant and put it over in cooler water on the other side of the island, will it still retain its heat resistant properties? Or over time will it adjust to being in cooler conditions and therefore still be subject to suffering when the water temperatures change suddenly, or when we have these sort of waves of hot water? Really interesting to think that his little brain thought of this idea and wanting to answer that question. That's a real scientific mindset, I think. We're quite late to get in the water. All of this takes a lot more time and work than what we can portray in a video, but certainly maybe even more time and effort than what might be obvious to people watching. Just to get in the water and harvest the frags or to find broken pieces of coral takes time, and then to get around to the other side of the island in the location where we're wanting to plant out the reef, that takes time. And the process of just cleaning the substrate, hammering the coral clips in, and then positioning the corals in the right way, all of that is really tedious. So hopefully we'll be done and out of the water before Darwin needs lunch. That's the goal. What'd you find? You found a container? Did you get the pliers?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
We spent about 2 hours underwater, gathering the resilient coral fragments from the lagoon and then planting them all in one spot so that we can easily track their progress over time. Jace and I have found a really good rhythm now, especially when we're on scuba and we can't talk. He scrubs the substrate and hammers in the coral clips, and then I follow behind, gently placing each fragment onto the rock. It was a really successful day on the reef. This rock was once a Parietes coral, so the layered structure provides a really cool foundation for a new coral reef. Just imagine what this rock might look like in a year's time. And we've officially named this coral patch Hypothesis Rock, because we're testing Arlo's theory. Let's see what happens. Make sure you subscribe and follow along. We've got some catching up to do, and soon we'll be officially naming our first coral garden from your incredible suggestions. As well as our baby shark, I haven't forgotten. You guys came up with some really awesome names, and we appreciate your contributions so much.
One more fish.
Yum 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 yum. Daddy. Catch. Fishy.
Daddy catch fishy.
Oh gosh, she's getting good.
Actually, Arlo caught the fishy. Daddy hooked it with the gaff.
It's literally pouring rain. Our toilets are blocked. There must be a blockage in a pipe because all 3 toilets are just filled with water, and it's Darwin's bedtime and the kids' time to get ready for bed where they would normally go to the toilet and everything. Jace is out in the rain, out in the septic tank out there trying to sort it out. Are you coming in?
Morning to you, sir. How are you? Oh, very nice. What's wrong with one side eye?
Have a bad
Dream. So this section behind me here is an area that is becoming really swampy as the sea level here is getting higher and higher and higher on an annual basis. We're beginning to see sections sort of erode from underneath, and the base of the island sand gravel mix is getting sucked out back onto the reef. So what we're doing here is we're actually going to fill this section with all of our organic matter that we've got. So this is old timbers, leaf, coconut husk, the leaf from the main house, everything, and we're going to do a par burn on it. So we're going to burn it, set it on fire, and then we're going to put the fire out. And what we're trying to do is create basically some activated carbon inside the mix, which is going to help break down that material and turn it into soil, and we're planting gardens on top of that. We did it really successfully up top and have a beautiful orchid garden growing up there. Here we want to plant a different species mix because what we're trying to do is get plants back in this area to hold this ground together and rebuild the, I guess, the soil base here. Today we're also going to set this old building on fire. This is very old, this building, and the roof is actually unsafe to climb on top of, because we're actually going to have some new staff accommodation behind this section, probably starting in the next couple of months, and it's going to help secure this area from any more swamping. Perfect wind direction this morning. That's so good. The compressor house. Man, them big house here. Them big wind him nothing thing bloom here. But I'm good, I got him space for keep him good now to compressor. Okay. And no, you go on another side it. Okay, you go through South Sabu. Jigsaw puzzle, eh? But this part of the jigsaw is too big. So we're actually a little bit delayed on our bar build because some beams we've had being cut for us are a little bit delayed. So it's holding everything else up. However, we are moving ahead with the Ropoto production, which is the ridge cap. It's an incredibly delicate. Oh, men aktana. Why do you look confused, Timo?
Not a good day.
Not a good day. Whoa, man. So it's that 18 meters of paneling, and these are woven over the top of each other, and they'll do it up on top of the roof, not down here. So we have to make all the panels first so it's easier, so that when we actually get up on top of the roof we're ready to go. But it's crazy. So all these are stitched together and they are lifted up in rungs of 3, but they're actually splitting this into 2 sections because it's too long to lift as one. Kamanta. And that's all the other leaf awaiting the construction of the roof. Molly's the only guest.
The one and only.
The only one. All the guests are gone. These two are hilarious. Does not look like a very fun place to hang out up there. These 2 cockatoos, Molly. Wow. Ini sun mas buah kablo to olo ya. Ah? Ah? I'm alright, but no look save. You make him wrong today. Huh?
In the blood, a young boy.
Oh.
Every all or no, so in the rock. Okay. All of drink medicine.
That was fast. Wow. How's that? The timber that we're using here, I'm actually highly allergic to. I found this out the very hard way over about almost 2 years. It took me to figure out that every time I built with this timber, it got the spores from the dust and physically holding it as my body got into my clothes, and I ended up with full body, like neck to knees, urticaria, and yeah, extremely inflamed skin, which then dried out and like shedded like a lizard. It was terrible, really painful, and really irritating and annoying. But I will show you why. So this piece of timber now is shining in the sunlight. You can actually see the silica content. So it's almost like there is sand inside the timber. This species, the linear, is known for it. It makes it really, really strong and termite resistant. But it, for me, I think is the difference between other timber species, which I'm not allergic to. Anyway, it looks really cool in the sunlight, so I'll show you now. So look him. Hem sign osem glita ja. Osem glasia, hem osem glasia. Das Deutsch in us kakaim. Sand. We realised we need to do some light pruning before we went any further with the build. Come on, Rasi. This extremely dry wind, which has dried everything out, which is phenomenal for us right now, is actually blowing straight towards our fuel yard from where we want to light the fire. So we've had to put all of our fuel into containers. Luckily we hadn't pumped the 1200 litres we had in drums into our fuel storage yet. So we're rolling the drums away and we've put all the rest of the fuel into containers, and now we're moving that well away and out of the wind path. That's a lot of petrol. I will drive very carefully. As we no down him come, make me go behind there. Think you by feet no me long. Right. By feet, yeah man. Yeah, him there. Okay, that's heaps of space. Perfect. I'll track him past now. Okay. Alright, the wind is moderated perfectly. I haven't filmed a lot because I actually forgot where I put the camera and I've been taking care of a bunch of jobs. Anyway, we've actually cleaned up a whole heap of different little like caches of palm fronds and stuff, which is just because when you're busy and you're trying to keep the resort clean, you tend to just to pull things to the side, and all these little caches of palm fronds and coconuts and stuff get established. So that's all been picked up now, and we have all this amazing organic matter to burn down. And I didn't explain why we're doing this before, but a mate of mine who's a soil scientist explained that on an island like this you don't have much labile carbon. I think that's the right word, hopefully. And the only way in which you can introduce it to actually promote soil production is by burning and then basically putting out the fire. So you don't want to completely burn through, but create this activated charcoal sort of situation, and that will actually start the process of fungi establishing and breaking it down and turning it to actual soil which you can grow gardens in. Because this is predominantly sand and coral rock on this island, it's really important for us to try and create soil however we can, and that's what we're doing. and worked really well up top. So we've already, you know, proven the concept works here, and then we're going to throw a bunch of sawdust on top and some other organic matter and keep mulching on top of it. But this is going to be the base by which we start the whole sort of process. So everything's coming in. So we've got leaves, old timber frames, we've got the old post from the main house in here, and the big store behind it's getting burnt down as well. Come on, man, up there. That's the Lord there, Louisa. And yeah, shout out to my mate Phil. Thanks for the info, mate. It's working. He'll actually be here in a couple of months. He'll be able to see it in action.
Use it to get online for
Red po bon nila.
Bye, store.
Bye-bye, store.
Caring for the reef feels even more urgent when we look at what's happening on land too. With sea levels rising, we've started working on ways to protect the island, raising the ground near the dive shop, clearing space for gardens, and making the most of this quiet time without guests here to get on with jobs that we usually can't touch. It's all part of the same picture, protecting what we love, both above and below the waterline.
Sawdust is going down. A lot of sawdust to go. Which is a good mix now. Charcoal, some rotten sticks and softwood logs, some hardwood, leaf from the sago palm tree, and leaf from the coconut, and then sawdust on top. So hopefully that's going to give us what we need, that thickness that we need there to get above the seawater level, which we're getting like 6 inches at high tide, and be able to start growing some species in it that are saltwater tolerant anyway, but still need some sort of soil there for them to grow in. So that's the plan. Looking good. Mad effort to get all that done this afternoon, but it feels really good. Get on top of things. Thank you now. Good day, worker. Thank you. You men acta. Jimmy, how are you double man?
Oh, lo lang so sim.
Hey, ayos ba ka lutuwal eh?
No more.
Ayos ba ka na?
No.
What happened, Darwin?
No.
Did you fall over, mate? You having a rough trip?
These days are running slow. Sunsets and shores far from home. Headlights are shining on the sea. No place on earth I'd rather be. And I could try to just follow the swell, but I'll never find this anywhere else.
There you go. Have a bite.
Fishy.
Oh, for the fishy. Okay.
Look at my hair.
Whoa, that's heavy hair you've got.
True Solomon Pikininian one.
Alright, Darwin, we gotta get on to this. I think you guys could stay for a little while, yeah.
Wash. Manla silo there. Manla this one.
I was thinking last time we were down here looking in the seagrass, we found a tiny anemone, like a really new anemone just below the seagrass. It was cool. Hey, Arlo. I've actually seen one before attached to a blade of grass, but then last time we were here we saw a pretty small one just on the sand beneath it, and I wondered we could find out more information about it, but it must be where they mature when they're juveniles. I don't know. Had no fish with it because it's very tiny.
Yeah, and anemones, funnily enough, do move. A lot of people don't realise that.
So especially when they're small like that, they obviously go into places where they can be protected to get big enough to then move out and settle somewhere on a coral reef somewhere.
Bye. Lana. Persistence has paid off, buddy. For those of you who have not followed my children's obsession with coconut grow, this is the germ that lives inside the coconut once it sprouts. And there's like a...
Sort of a marshmallow, but it tastes like something else.
Tastes kind of like a mix between coconut milk and coconut water.